Okay, so I don't want to waste too much time because honestly, I'm just super excited about this conversation. So the first person that I want to bring up to the stage is Robert Aiki Aubrey Lowe. He's an... Clap, come on, a little bit more fan. There we go. Come on up, brother. Yeah. So I'm going to embarrass you with a very short bio. So Robert is an artist, a curator, and composer that works primarily with, but not limited to, voice and modular synthesizer for soundworks in the realm of spontaneous music. In addition to his critically acclaimed artist projects, Robert is also an incredibly thoughtful and intentional film composer. You've heard his scores in projects like 2021's Candyman and the recent miniseries Telemarketers. He's here at Sundance this year with 3 projects. So please welcome Robert Aiki Aubrey Lowe. Next up to the stage is Brett Story. Brett is an award-winning filmmaker and writer from Toronto, Canada. She is the director of feature documentaries The Prison in 12 Landscapes and The Hottest August. She's the author of the book Prison Land. She also holds a PhD in geography, which is like the most fascinating fact that I've heard all Sundance, and has received fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation and the Sundance Institute. Please welcome Brett Story. And last but certainly not least is Stephen Maing. Stephen is a featured documentary. His feature documentary, Crime and Punishment, won a special jury award at the 2018 Sundance Film Festival. If you were here, you very likely saw that one. They also won an Emmy Award for that project and were shortlisted for an Academy Award. He's held fellowships from United States Artists and Sundance Institute and was a recipient of the IDA's prestigious Courage Under Fire Award. Stephen Maing. So I thought we would start off with a very easy one. You guys just had your premiere yesterday. It sounded like it was very exciting. Could you tell me about that experience of bringing this project to Sundance?
Yeah, sure. I mean, do we know yet? It's so hard to even feel like you're in a real body on this mountain. But it's totally thrilling. I mean, we have been working on this film for over 3 years. It's a verite project, which means like a lot of footage, a lot of filming, and a lot of editing. I mean, over a year in the edit room to think about what of these, these 600-700 hours of footage, how do we craft that into a story that has complexity, that has something to communicate, that honors the struggle that we were documenting. So to be in this moment where the film is no longer just our obsession and our collaboration, but is now in a world in which it can collaborate with an audience. I mean, I think we're all people who think about films that way, that a film leaves the minds and intentions of the makers and enters into a public realm precisely so that you all can participate in making it meaningful and having it be meaningful. So it's totally thrilling to share it with an audience.
What's interesting is like what you might not ever see, but is happening in the background is it's a real moment of catharsis, I think, for the participants, for filmmakers. Sure. 2 of the participants said that they were in tears almost the whole time.
Well, is this the first time that they had seen the final film?
Not. They had seen it before, but the experience of being here with this kind of audience is so powerful. Yeah. And for us, a lot of our team, we're very choked up watching it. It's an amazing moment to kind of like feel like we've arrived at this work we've all cared about.
Sure, and for the 2 of you to have been supported by Sundance for so long, that has to feel good to kind of have this as your home for this project too.
Absolutely. It's, the beginning of the year. It's a major launch for the film and wonderful audiences.
Yeah. So I want you guys to back up to kind of the genesis of this project, if you don't mind. What projects were each of you coming off of? Maybe what mindset were you in, and what attracted you initially to this project?
Yeah, so I have been working on another project actually that I'm still working on, which was an all-archival film, my first all-archival film about the CIA's infiltration of the arts in the 1950s. And I've made a few films. I was really settling into the idea of working on a film that was all archival, not a lot of production. And our producers, Sam and Mars, had approached me because they'd been developing a film about Chris Smalls, labor leader of the ALU, which hadn't then yet formed. And as soon as they told me about it, I thought, this moment needs a film about the labor movement. We had American Factory a few years ago. It was an incredible film, but by and large, we don't have a lot of documentation of this moment in labor history and the history of capitalism, and it was an incredible opportunity to document a struggle from the ground up. And I reached out to my amazing collaborator, Stephen Maing, who's just beyond talented, and asked him what he thought about coming on board.
Yeah, Brett is an incredibly admired and talented filmmaker. So to get a call from Brett Story was a real moment for me. I'd been, a lot of my work has looked at like citizen journalists and leakers and whistleblowers, and I had come off like 7 years embedding with NYPD whistleblowers who were, exposing the department for discriminatory practices and productivity quotas. And so when I got the call, I was really excited because I'd been following the story, and there was a really alarming sort of familiarity of issues taking place not just in the NYPD, but in Amazon warehouses within this invisible workforce. So it was a real exciting moment to think about making a film with Brett, because I think we both like to think about, in different ways in our work, how structures and systems work.
Sure. And did the magnitude, sorry, and then I want you to stop, but I was wondering, the magnitude of this being attached to Amazon, I mean, I was reading earlier actually on the ALU's website, this labor union, essentially, these workers, there are more Amazon workers in the US than there are in auto manufacturing, which I don't think that many people realize just the extent of kind of how quickly, this behemoth has grown. And so right away, did you understand how important this story was going to be, and was that kind of part of the attraction maybe?
Yeah, and particularly because of the moment we're coming out of, right? We saw in the pandemic corporations were seeing soaring profits in the billions, right? And at the same time, we're seeing an expansion of the working poor and growing numbers of homeless. And so what I think was really important for us was this feeling that oh wow, we're staring something right in the eye. This idea that, yes, it is Amazon. It's also so much broader than Amazon. It's the nature of capitalism that puts an emphasis on economic productivity in exchange for racial and class equality.
Right.
So I think that's something that we immediately were very keyed into.
Yeah. And Robert, what about you? How early into the process were you brought on?
I was actually brought on to into the process fairly late, which is uncommon generally for how I tend to deal with film work. I always like to be a part of the process all the way through, because sound is such an integral part of film that I think that it can get lost. It's something that needs to be entangled with the story and with the visual aspect of the film, really from the beginning. And so that's always been something that's been very key for me. This project, due to the fact when Brett and Steve reached out to me, knowing their work as filmmakers and activists, I was very excited about the project. The relationship that I have to unions, due to the fact that I come from a union family, both union auto workers and electricians, it was something that was very important to me. And I was actually just coming off of essentially two projects. I had just finished working on a film called Grasshopper Republic, which is a film by Daniel McCabe, which is about grasshopper trapping in Uganda, which was a very interesting film, and the way in which it was made and the way that we dealt with it, it was meant to be more of an experiential film. So it's something that's has a very discrete subject, but the way in which we dealt with it, there was no exposition. Nothing was explained, so it became this very immersive, experiential film, which, I spent a lot of time working on the sound and the score and spatializing it, so when you experience it, the sound is really moving around you. And also with Telemarketers, which is, a film, a docuseries about two friends that became whistleblowers inside of the telemarketing industry. And so it was also interesting to find myself in this place where I was dealing with subject matter that was politically based around the concepts of labor, and that actually just folded in.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did you guys collaborate with each other then, or what was that collaboration process like? I mean, I have to imagine this was right around 2021, I'm assuming, when you guys were doing the bulk of filming, and maybe 2022 when you guys were kind of finishing up. How did that process look? Were you all ever together at the same time? Were you doing everything remotely? Did you ever get to see footage? What kind of conversations were you having?
Well, I think the very first conversation we had with Rob, it was something we kind of all said was, we are process-oriented artists and we care about collaboration. Yes. And that was sort of like the first moment where we were like, okay, maybe we're on the same kind of wavelength here, like beyond even conversations yet about sonic tone and musical style. Like that's really important to all of us. And what that meant was actually at the beginning just having long conversations with Rob about the narrative of the film, which we were still constructing, the ideas that were going to be in the film, the things that we were thinking about and mulling over that we wanted to, hopefully communicate. And that, ideally, Rob would have been brought in a lot earlier. I don't think either of us wanted to bring him in so late. It's just the nature of a crazy film like this. But yeah, absolutely thinking about music as not its own sort of separate track, like actually music as just part of the language of cinema, and us needing to just have like long conversations about what the film is even about.
Yeah. I mean, I have to imagine too, with that much footage, you trying to find the story within it gets a little complicated. How did you guys balance all of that? Excellent editors.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, can I share one anecdote?
Please,
about
oh my
Rob?
gosh, yes.
So 18 years ago, I went to a show at a very underground club called Monster Island, and there was a solo performer called Likens that put on one of the most memorable performances I'd ever seen. And I recalled feeling at that time like, oh my God, this person would be an incredible composer for a film because of the sort of like transcendent range of his voice, like the way he was thinking about composition at that time, and just the bodily experience that it sort of evoked. And so it was so exciting, that to learn that, he was composing with, friends in the doc community that we knew and was available. So just wanted to put that out there. You should look into Likens. It's wonderful.
I was going to say 18 years is a long time to hold on to that love.
I also went to a show that that Rob was performing, not as long as 18 years ago, but something like 7 or 8 years ago, and didn't know he was a composer. So it's actually really great to come into a collaboration as a fan, to be like, I am just honored to be in conversation with this person who has, as a musician, meant a lot to us.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very easy to tell, even just reading interviews with all three of you, like you approach your artistry each with the same intentionality, which I think is very striking about the three of you.
Yeah, but to your question earlier, Rob is the kind of I've been calling him a dream composer because he's not just there to write music to a scene and then, hit an easy emotional note. The conversations we had with Rob were so deep and so keyed into kind of like the essential truth of the moment and the intention of what we were trying to get at. And what I loved about working with him is that everything was a motivated kind of sourced notion or concept. Every note, every movement, every change was really born out of a deep sort of connection to the material, and probably frustratingly at times, like our ever-changing edit.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that a little bit? Like, how do you, how does that change your process, maybe?
I don't know that it necessarily changes my process. I think that being a part of the work, for me, collaboration is extraordinarily important. Conversation and dialogue is extraordinarily important. There has to be a constant conversation happening about what we're doing, what we're making. And then as far as the edit is concerned, when I get into a project, I try to understand what the subject is, build a sound palette, start working on compositional ideas, and put that in the ear of the filmmaker. So as they're working on, sometimes I come in so early, I'm actually composing things before they've shot the first scene. And that way, the sound of the film is in the composer's ear, in the ear of the director, and they're considering that as they're considering shots, as they consider how things are moving within space, which is super important. And that way, the actuality of the sound and the visual are also immediately in conversation. So for me, to build a sound palette, to start working on ideas and putting those in place, and then as the edit is coming along, it's interesting for me and good exercise for me to be able to move with the edit and find the intentionality in each of these moments that are happening, because I think that the more you can draw out of each situation, each space, each circumstance, then that only enhances the experience that you have. And so, we had a lot of conversations about how a majority of this film plays dry. So the score is spare, but it's about having that gesture and building these events that sort of act as a ghost that follows the story and follows all of the organizers of the Amazon Labor Union. So enhancing moments of joy, of turmoil, of tension, of anxiety, and just sort of following that path. So in a way, it moves in a linear fashion. And that's actually something that's really interesting. I tried this once on a film back in 2019. I did a film called Il Coppa del Cane, which is an Italian independent film. And my idea was to make the score completely linear, so there were no returns to any aspect of the composition all the way through. So the story laid out, even though there were moments of flashbacks and returns to things that happened before, finding elements within the score that could live early on but then weren't fully realized, so you wouldn't even understand that certain elements that you were hearing fully realized later on in the film were actually ghosted earlier in the...
You really think very thoughtfully about your audience in that sense. I think sometimes you listen to film scores or you see a film and you're almost, the story's given away in moments just because you feel that manipulation on your emotions. It's very interesting, because I read an article earlier today too, some of the great reviews that are coming out about this film, where it seems like that was an intentional kind of process for you guys too, of letting this story unfold. It wasn't like you were trying to hit story points. It wasn't like you were trying to make this necessarily a hero's journey. You weren't trying to oversimplify a very complicated and very nuanced human story.
Yeah, I think we're all people who are really interested in how film works as an art form on the body as well as on the mind. And, I think I'll just speak personally, documentary doesn't always get treated as a work of cinema. And it's a real shame, because in nonfiction especially, you have to do so much. It would be so easy to telegraph vis-a-vis the music what emotion you're supposed to feel at any given moment, or what experience you're supposed to have, or what's even going to happen to over-anticipate the action. And it never feels earned. Then at that point, you're just ingesting it like content. And a film that stays with you, at least for me, a film that stays with you makes you feel like you have had you had viscerally come into an understanding, and then been wrecked by it, then it's trapped inside your body, and you can't stop thinking about it, you can't stop feeling it, and the sound is so essential to that, and sound and music and image are in this complicated relationship that's about trying to say something true about the reality of the moment, but also honor the way in which cinema has a kind of is a magic to it that is hard to describe. And so, to also be able to work intuitively rather than just, dictating like, okay, this is going to happen then, and we need the music to underscore that in this way.
Yeah, for a film about a workers' movement, a people's movement, where the worker organizers are, claiming their dignity, right? They're claiming their agency. I think something that emerges over time is this real sense of human connection with the protagonists of the film. And what I love about this score, and it was not a literal sort of instruction of any kind, but I think an intuitive one for Rob, was that, Rob has a very unique skill, which is he can actually make good music with modular synth.
No judgment there.
It is a real skill. And so there's this idea of an electronic, non-human element in his composition. And Rob has this incredibly fucking beautiful voice that he uses as instrumentation. And what's so interesting, I think, about the pieces that he was sending us was that they really don't reveal that layer of the vocal element as instrument until we get into the film. And then that layer, if you watch the film, like, look out for it. You start to wonder, what kind of instrument is that? Like, it feels more organic than any instrument, I would imagine. And by the end of the film, I think it's pretty apparent it is, a human vocalization that is in conversation with the modular synth work he was doing. So I love that element of what you did. It's not something we asked for, so we're grateful.
That's funny, because that is something you were very kind to share the score with us, and that was something that we picked up on as well, is that you kind of start in this place, not to say that it doesn't feel necessarily human, but you end up in this spot where I agree that it is like very obvious that you've taken us on a journey there. Yeah.
No, I think it was important for me as I was working down these ideas, because the opening shot of the film, I can tell them the opening shot of the film, is of a freighter in a port with a bunch of shipping crates on it. And so there are certain mechanical aspects that you find, or in unhuman aspects that you find within the score early on, inside of the warehouse, the conveyor belts, people working, the robots moving around. And then out of that, as you start to understand and get to know all of the humans that are essentially characters within this landscape, then and it's a very humanist film. It's dealing with real human beings and how they exist in the world. And so I wanted to be able to highlight those moments, utilizing a lot of my voice and like sort of layers, like building choral pieces with my own voice, to just sort of highlight these more intimate moments with human beings within the space.
I was wondering if you could speak maybe to the humans in your story a little bit more, because I think that's something that we haven't really touched on, and that does seem to be really the center of this all. I mean, it's funny, or maybe not funny, it's just everyone maybe coming into this film, the one thing that they will know about the Amazon Labor Union, I feel, is Chris. I mean, that was a dynamic personality, wonderful storyteller, and incredibly passionate, and there was a lot of media attention around it. So I do feel like, in a small way, everyone in America got to meet Chris Small. So I'm wondering, was that ever an anchor point, or did you guys, again, just let that organically, the story around the entire organizers, did you let that unfold, maybe more organically?
Well, maybe I'll say something that I don't think I've said to Chris, who's here, by the way.
Chris is here.
But, when one of the first times after meeting Chris that I was at one of their meetings, it was an online meeting over Zoom. And of course, it's compelling, the idea of making a film about a labor struggle, about workers, at this moment of low union density, fighting the biggest corporation on the planet. All of that is compelling, but actually the moment that I really felt like we were going to have a film was during a Zoom meeting. And at these Zoom meetings, still during COVID, so there's a lot of meetings online, and they become kind of like open forum. People will just show up and introduce themselves. And it's really nice. You see, like, people are searching for community, but they're also searching for, like, a struggle to be part of, or just searching for someone who's going to listen to their grievance. And someone came on the Zoom meeting and just was like, this company is just wasting me. I just feel like a slave in there. This is like, I can't go on any longer. And there was just a really beautiful exchange between Chris and this worker that made me understand, like, this is a film fundamentally about care. And the obvious contrast between the ALU and Amazon is big and the ALU is small. But the other big contrast that I think really speaks to what we've been talking about around the sound is that Amazon doesn't care. It's an alienating, mechanized corporation which hires and fires through algorithm and apps. And the ALU was a space where people could feel like someone was there for them. And that intimacy was really important to express. And we knew that we wanted sound to be part of how we could express that contrast between the alienation of the workplace and the intimacy and care of the organizing space.
Yeah, I think, one of my misgivings about like a single character narratives is that, it forces all the events that unfold during your filming time to hew to like the hero's journey, right? And then the kind of music that you need to kind of enliven that is very sort of like predictable, emotionally driving or leading music that instructs you to feel a certain way and arrive at a terminal point. And the movement that we were witnessing was one that is part of a long continuum of organizing, and that for the starting point and the end point of our film to be discrete should not ever imply that what is happening in the real world is discrete. And so, this idea of the mosaic experience, like the knowability of Chris's experience is about understanding the mosaic of all the diverse people around him. And like finding like music that like unlocks that sort of spaciousness of imagination and like releases you from the traditional story arcs that typically are built around stories like this was really aided actually by the music.
Do you want to talk to that at all, Robert? I know, when we were having dinner, you had mentioned we had dinner with a couple of other composers, and you guys were all speaking to this concept that sometimes your scoring work is knowing when to be there with the music and when to step back.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think understanding how a story can move and you're building a world essentially, and in one way this world has already is in the process of being built because it's about people and the struggle of therein and trying to achieve something that for the greater good. And so, once again, this idea of finding when it was necessary to have sound and when it was necessary to have silence. Silence is just as large a part of composition as anything else. So it's just about, I think in a lot of ways it's about trusting your intuition, getting into the space, understanding what the space is, the architecture of it, and then how you can live inside of it. Excuse me. And then also building that world or that character being the score along with and living with the rest of the story.
That's a very important point.
And also with this particular film, just the idea of transparency and truth. I wanted the score to be able to be as transparent as it possibly could be in a way that was not, this idea, speaking of this idea of leading the audience or doing these, like living within a trope or, these sort of canned ideas when you're presenting something to an audience. Like someone engaging with that project, with that film, the audience is smarter, and so I think that it's reductive to try to do those things because you don't want to speak down to the people that you're presenting this work to.
Yeah. And to Brett's earlier point, for an audience, it's not as enjoyable, and you're not going to live with that project for as long as you might.
Yeah.
I'm curious because Stephen, you were kind of mentioning this, but how did you, with so much footage and so much time spent with these people, I'm wondering, how did you establish that initial trust in order to, because obviously this is a very, maybe it's a story in which you wouldn't necessarily think that this group is going to win. It's a very challenging, topic to tackle, of course. And I think I was reading earlier, they deemed this, an ununionizable, project. I'm curious, how did you establish, that working relationship maybe early on with the group, or was it fairly easy?
It's like time spent. We spent a long time in the field with them, and over years, if you remember back to late 2021, early 2022, everybody's making a lot of hay about Starbucks unionizing and winning. Coffee shops, 8 to 15 person shops. All you have to do is convince 7 or 8 of your coworkers to sign, at election time. Yep. And here were these organizers who were set with the task of flipping an 8,300 worker warehouse. And yet nobody in the media was paying attention closely to their organizing. And so for us to be there, I think, is like, that's an act of trust that they felt, and it was reciprocated.
Yeah, amazing. That's amazing. And then too, how did you guys arrive, maybe not at an ending, but certainly an ending to this project, an ending to this film?
Well, it wasn't easy.
Quite sure.
I mean, that's, I think that it's very, there's a sort of like kind of radical act of humility, I think, that a film team has to enter into to admit that they can never tell a story fully because life continues, right? So what would it even mean? Like, we can't go as deep as things should be, but we can't encompass everything before and everything after. Right. And everything was unfolding. Things still are unfolding. I mean, there were a lot of jokes about whether or not we should work on this for 10 years, whether or not it should be a multi-part series. Maybe there still will be a part 2. But I think at a certain point, we understood that the time was now to get the film out, and we understood that that we had, that part of the work we had to do was just give a sense of their sacrifice, and that would take time, film time. Like, we couldn't get too quickly to the election or to their victory, to afterwards, because we had to build in, like, cinematic time a sense of the durational endurance and sacrifice that they themselves had gone through. And so, you're working within limits, and we decided in some ways it felt too easy to end with the win. It felt like then everyone understands that to be an ending, and it sort of forecloses even the idea that things continue afterwards. But we also knew that the win probably should come relatively close to the end, so it was just a matter of sort of figuring out how to gesture to everything unfolding afterwards in a way that makes us understand that this is just where the film is ending, but it's not where life is ending.
Understood. Well, thank you all for being here with us. I just want to ask one last question before we get to the next process of today. But is there anything that you're hoping that audiences, once they sit with this film for a while, come away with? Do you have any hopes, maybe?
That organizing is hard. The incredible sacrifice, as Brett was talking about. But it matters. Win or lose, it matters. And that what Chris and the ALU have engaged in is a lifelong political commitment in support of the working class in America. And I think that the story expands much farther out than any single warehouse at Amazon. So I think that I hope it sort of resonates with the public that what they are fighting for is the future of work. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add to that, a company doesn't want a union, in part because it doesn't want workers to understand their own power, and their power both in terms of being the people that produce value for the company and produce value for the world, but also what people are capable of doing together. And so just the radical idea that this small group of people who are being told by everybody around them that they cannot do it, decided anyways, you know, in the face of all of that, to do something and to do it together and to try and to weather the storms, both literal and metaphorical, I think is just like actually the most inspiring thing. And again, we didn't know if they were going to win. We knew that the struggle was important to document, even if they lost, and maybe especially if they lost, because it still offers a glimpse into the idea that and an understanding that people want to build a kind of counterpower together, and they can.
Yeah, I would say just the understanding that, you know, humans that are working are such a large percentage of the population, and something like organizing helps you to understand this sort of egalitarian possibility, because everybody is, you know, on the same level. Everybody should understand that each one is just as important as the next, and I think that that's something that I would hope that people come away with this film.
You know, one other thing I just wanted to add is that the people who arrive at organizing are always the most unexpected, right? So Chris is a parent. He's a former athlete. He's a former rapper. He's a former Amazon employee. And now he is one of the most important emerging labor organizers in our country. And he's given up so much and made so much sacrifice for that. And that's kind of like the template of an organizer, right? It can be anybody, and there's a bit of sacrifice there.
Yeah. Well, I actually think that's a wonderful segue. This is a surprise to all of you and a surprise to us as well, but Chris is actually here with us today, and what you may not know about Chris, which Steven just mentioned, is that he's an accomplished rapper, and he's going to come up and do a little performance for you. So we're going to get off the stage. Chris is going to come up. He's going to wow you. So please welcome Chris Smalls.
Hello, hello. Thank you all for being here today. I didn't plan this at all, but ASCAP, I used to be a former rapper, so understanding that I tried to get a deal independently and it never worked out, I'm glad that I get to return the favor by performing for y'all. And, you know, my music is hip-hop, so I'm going to change the vibe a little bit. I would love to give y'all what I tried to give out to the world over 10 years ago. So I have some music that's still up on SoundCloud that I'm going to perform today. But before I get to that, how about everybody take a stand real quick? Let's raise the energy in here. Now, everybody in here, if you think we all deserve higher wages, raise your hand. If you think that we all deserve to have free health care, raise your hand. If you deserve to have a decent living wage, working conditions, and laws to protect you, raise your hand. If you shop on Amazon, raise your hand. Good. So if you shop on Amazon, then you need to donate to the Amazon Labor Union. Can I get a commitment for that? Support the workers from the products that are being delivered to your door. So with that being said, DJ, I know I told you my time, but can you actually switch it up? I want to dance. Let's bring the energy up, y'all. Clap your hands. Clap your hands. Clap your hands. Clap your hands. Clap your hands, everybody. Clap your hands. Hey. Let's go, everybody. Sundance. Make some noise for Sundance 2024, y'all.
Bad bitches to the floor right now.
Let me see you do it.
Bottle popping, winning, losing is not an option. I'm getting money, I'm spending money, I'm never stopping. I get the pussy, I beat it up till I leave it throbbing. I'm a dog, I eat it up till I leave it slopping. I tell her do it like it's Nike. I take her to the crib, make a movie like a Spike Lee. She asked me for my number and I tell her she ain't wifey. I tell her wipe me down, lick me up like an icy. Don't need no drama, definitely don't need no baby mama. I'm in Bahamas, 10 and chillin' up in the sauna. My persona is money, money, and more dollars. I've been a monster, matter of fact, I'm a green goblin. When you gone with that ass so fat, bring that thing right here, make it clap, clap, clap. Chris Smalls, tat it up, snake skin, snap back. When we up in the club, tell our DJ bring it back. Do it, no hands, do it, no hands, do it, no hands, do it, no hands. While I sit back and I watch it, I sit back and I watch it. I'm running this shit like a quarterback option. Bad bitches to the floor right now. Bad bitches to the floor right now.
Let me see you
do it. Bad bitches to the floor right now. Bad bitches to the floor right now.
I wanna see you
do it. With some models, get it poppin' 2-liter bottle. 4 words, pop bras, drop bottles. Call my niggas, a different night is a different venue. Same shit, different bros, a different menu. Do it. Go on and put your back into it. I'ma sit back and watch it and put a slap into it. Look back, yeah girl, you make me horny. Yeah, I'm fly, yeah girl, I know you want. Shorty got a booty like pow, pow, pow. A little freaky chick like girls going wild. And I don't wanna wait, I wanna right now. And now we in my bed like pow. Hey, do it, no hands, go. Do it, no hands, whoa. Do it, no hands, do it, no hands. While I sit back and I watch it, I sit back and I watch it. I'm running this shit like a quarterback option. Bad bitches to the floor right now. Bad bitches to the floor right now.
Let me see y'all do it.
Bad bitches to the floor right now. Bad bitches to the floor right now.
I wanna see you do it.
Without no hands, doing it for your mans. Doing it for them racks, you doing it for them grands. 20, 50s, and 100s, Gucci, Louis, and Prada. If you ain't doing nada, you don't even get $1. You the baddest chick, do your thing, girl. Go stupid retarded, go insane, girl. Twerk something like you twerking for the twerk team. She an all-star with it, I'm talking first team. Bend it over, make it clap. Bring it up, look back. Got 'em watching, that's a fact. All my bad bitches, clap, clap, do it, no hands, do it, no hands, do it, no hands, do it, no hands. While I sit back and I watch it, I sit back and I watch it. I'm running this shit like a quarterback option.
Clap, clap, clap. Let me see y'all do it. Clap, clap, clap. Let me see y'all do it. Make some noise, Sundance 2024. I got one more for y'all. Yeah.
Yo, hottest rapper out of germs. My niggas co-sign like words. Lamborghini dreaming, I'm in that Mercy Lago yelling swerve. Used to play the block and curve. Now I'm in the mall, buying everything that I deserve. Shout out to my good life, they compliment my hood life. These girls be calling my phone up, they trying to see what it look like. And I ain't got no time, so I send them a text. And it's one-time section, it's on to the next. And I'm all about my money, power, and respect. And I'm putting my foot on these rappers' neck. Now middle finger these haters, I'm out here chasing that paper. These niggas claiming they ballin' when they a bunch of restaurant waiters. And I ain't got no time for that motherfucking bullshit. Chop nigga down with the motherfucking full clips. Switching up my style, cause they love when I do this. Bitches love my style, cause they love when I do this. 60 racks in my pocket, top back when I lean. Loud pack, I be rolling up. You can smell before I hit the scene. Alright, now whip is sitting so clean. With a bad bitch on my team. And you know she looking nice. And you know that ass is mean. Alright, now let me do my thing. I've been doing my thing for a while. And I don't care if you judging me, cause you know I'm skipping that trial. Alright, now I'ma put it down. I'm the illest, realest, trillest, chillest nigga in the fucking building. This year about to make a kill and fly like I'm the vapors. Dressed in all black like Darth Vader. Shoes is custom alligator. Dropping bombs like I'm Al Qaeda. Okay, now me and Joey Diamonds, we be shining. Taking trips to different climbing. Women showing bikini with panty lining up. Shout out to the timing, cause you know this shit was perfect. And shout out to the struggle, cause in the end it all was worth it. Hold up. That can never be as fly as me. They niggas better start spreading their wings. They trying to get anywhere close to me. I'm fly. It's my fucking time. Money on my mind. Tell them haters bye.
Hey DJ.
It's my
Thank you.
time. Money on my mind.
Make some noise. And I just want to say this. Thank you for allowing me to perform. I don't really do music like that, but my voice has been used to do something great, and I'm honored to be here at Sundance for the first time. I hope everybody see the film Union. It's a really good movie and film, but understand that this fight is your fight right now. And no amount of money in the world, no amount of money in the world can amount to the power of people when we come together. Solidarity, love, and solidarity. Power to the people.